The World Report. Let's take a look at the headlines this hour. US President Donald Trump warned that Hamas must halt internal killings in Gaza, stating that force may be used to disarm the group, but has clarified that US troops will not enter the region, leaving action to local forces. Hamas has reaffirmed commitment to the ceasefire with Israel and has stated that it is working to return all remaining bodies of Israeli captives. But according to some local reports, Hamas claims that it cannot return the remaining hostages' bodies without equipment to clear the rubble. US President Donald Trump announced that he expects to meet Russian President Vladimir Putin in Budapest within 2 weeks, stating that their recent call achieved great success. Kremlin has described the conversation as frank and trustful. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says that he expects the momentum from the Middle East peace deal to help end Russia's war as he prepares to meet Donald Trump in order to discuss the possibility of Tomahawk missiles being supplied to Ukraine. US President Donald Trump says that India would halt Russian oil purchases while Britain imposed sanctions on major Russian firms and Chinese energy assets. India and China remain key buyers of discounted Russian crude, but India may reduce imports from December. Iran's Supreme National Security Council Chief Ali Larijani met Russian President Vladimir Putin in Moscow in order to discuss bilateral relations and cooperation following the recent strategic partnership treaty between the two countries. Japan's lower house will vote on the 21st of October to select the next prime minister. LDP leader Sanae Takaichi seeks coalition support, potentially becoming the country's first female prime minister. Upcoming diplomatic events include summits in Malaysia, South Korea, and a visit by Donald Trump. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney says he is expected to meet senior Chinese officials soon to discuss broader trade issues while sidestepping questions on auto and canola tariffs. The Israeli Defense Forces say that they have in fact foiled an overnight attempt to smuggle weapons into Israel from Egypt that used a drone. Troops reportedly located the drone after it crossed the border and downed it, revealing it had 2 assault rifles on board. Additionally, Israeli authorities have noted that attempts to transport weapons and drugs across the Egyptian border have increased over the past year. Meanwhile, in related developments, Israeli Defense Minister Katz has ordered the IDF to place physical markers along the so-called yellow line in Gaza, designating the boundaries of military control under the current ceasefire. The markers are intended to warn against violations, with the IDF recently targeting Palestinians who crossed the line, claiming they posed a threat to the troops. Meanwhile, the yellow line covers over half of the Gaza Strip, mostly outside urban areas, and many IDF posts are located closer to the Israeli border. Now, future phases of the ceasefire may involve further troop pullbacks. According to Katz's office, the markers are expected to resemble the blue barrels which are used alongside UN-recognized blue line between Israel and Lebanon. With us on the broadcast is Mr. Rohan Gunaratne, international affairs expert joining us from Singapore. Thank you so much for taking out time and speaking to us on NewsX World. Some other very crucial developments coming in from the Middle East at this point. Israeli Defense Forces stating that they've foiled an attempt to smuggle weapons into Israel from Egypt that used a drone. What do you make of the fresh developments coming in?
Pia, what we are seeing is a constant attempt to move weapons from Egypt to Gaza, but this is not done by the Egyptian government. This is done by Hamas supporters and supporters of other terrorist groups that are operating in Gaza, because there are supporters and sympathizers of these groups in that region. And certainly in this case, Israel detected it. Even 2 weeks ago, there was a similar incursion where Israel detected, but there may be other weapons that are moving without such detection. So the transportation of weapons by drones is something that is happening constantly, and it needs to be addressed. Otherwise, Hamas and the other threat groups that are operating in Gaza will rearm and will continue the fight.
Indeed. And, there are more developments coming in at this moment. The U.S. military has carried out a new strike against a suspected drug vessel in the Caribbean. As per reports, it is believed to be the first such case with survivors amongst the crew. Before Thursday's operation, U.S. military strikes against suspected drug boats off Venezuela killed at least 27 people, raising alarms among some legal experts and democratic lawmakers who were questioned whether they adhere to the laws of the war. Still with us on the broadcast is Professor Gunaratna. Sir, what do you make of what's happening off the coast of Venezuela?
The U.S. Department of Defense, now known as the U.S. Department of War, has been constantly carrying out such operations to disrupt, according to the U.S., the flow of drugs on vessels from Venezuela to the United States. Of course, the relationship between Venezuela and the U.S. is very bad. President Trump just called the Venezuelan president illegitimate. So I believe that there must be restoration of relations between these two countries. As long as there is bad blood, there will be such conflict and confrontation.
And what do you make of recent statements that have been put out, in fact, reiterated numerous times by the Nicolas Maduro administration that is not recognized by Washington, D.C.? Maduro claims that the United States is trying to engineer a regime change. And in the meantime, Donald Trump has also come out and stated in the media that he's authorized the CIA to conduct some covert operations there as well.
You're correct, Pia. Both these things happened. Trump openly said that CIA has been authorized. It is very likely that there will be a regime change. Second is, of course, both these countries have hit rock bottom in terms of relations. So as long as there is a continuity of conflict, there will be such accusations traded by both parties. And of course, US will unilaterally conduct operations against vessels the US claims is carrying drugs. And I have no reason to doubt that there is movement of drugs across Venezuela and the US. What is important is for both these countries to work together.
Indeed. And so stay on with us. We're tracking some further updates. Venezuela has asked the United Nations Security Council to determine that deadly U.S. strikes on vessels of its coast as illegal and issue a statement backing Venezuela's sovereignty. Now, in a letter to the 15-member Security Council, Venezuela's UN ambassador Samuel Moncada accused Washington of killing at least 27 people in the strikes on civilian vessels transiting international waters. However, the UNSC will be unable to take any action beyond holding meetings on the situation because the United States itself holds veto power. Listen in to what the Venezuelan ambassador had to say.
Yesterday, on October 14, 2025, the government of the United States of America carried out a new set of extrajudicial executions against civilians who were aboard a small stationary boat in the Caribbean Sea just a few miles off the coast of Venezuela. Recent reports of public domain have identified two humble fishermen from the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago among the victims. Their relatives indicate that those who were assassinated were engaged in fishing activities at the time. This act is yet another chapter in the escalation of the U.S. strikes carried out since September to date against civilian vessels transiting international waters in the Caribbean Sea, which have so far resulted in 5 lethal attacks and 27 deaths.
Meanwhile, Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro has in fact stated that for the first time, the United States has openly agreed that it is carrying out CIA operations in the country. This comes as reports have revealed that a new U.S. strike against an alleged drug vessel in the Caribbean has left survivors. Now, speaking at an event in Caracas, Maduro stated that the CIA had already plotted against former President Hugo Chavez and himself. This further escalates growing tensions between the US and the Caribbean nation over alleged drug trafficking menace. Listen in to what Maduro had to say.
No al cambio de régimen que nos recuerda tanto a las fallidas guerras eternas de Afganistán, Irak, Libia, y pare usted de contar. No a los golpes de Estado dados por la CIA, que nos recuerda tanto a los 30.000 desaparecidos por la CIA en los golpes de Estado contra Argentina, al golpe de Estado de Pinochet y los 5.000 jóvenes asesinados y desaparecidos. ¿Hasta cuándo golpes de Estado de la CIA? América Latina no los quiere, no los necesita y los repudia. Así que la paz se gana, no tengo ninguna duda. La paz se preserva.
Still with us on the broadcast is Mr. Rohan Gunaratna, Professor of International Affairs from Singapore. We've heard what Maduro has to say and we've been discussing this. We've discussed this yesterday as well. What are the sort of implications for Latin American countries at large? Because we do know that the Trump administration, in order to bolster support from the MAGA voter base, has been going quite hard against what it terms as the drug menace. So what sort of precedent could US actions in the Caribbean be setting once we already know? And there's a UN report that has come out that a majority of the drug transit happens through the border with Mexico via land or through the shipping lanes from the Pacific side.
Yeah, I recently visited Mexico, and what the Americans are saying, the US government is saying, is correct. There is a movement of drugs from the south to the United States, and US needs to address it because it's a huge social problem in the United States. But what is important is to do it in cooperation and collaboration and in partnership with South and Central American countries. It should not be unilateral, but of course those governments in Latin America should cooperate with the United States because it's a national security challenge. So in this case, there is bad blood between President Maduro and President Trump. So there must be some discussion between the countries in South and Central America with the US to resolve this. There should be a forum that is established. There should be a greater understanding of this challenge, and it should be addressed because otherwise more people will die in the United States due to the movement of drugs from South and Central America.
So with that, I would like to thank you for taking out time and sharing your perspective with us on NewsX World as we track these very crucial developments. With that, viewers, we're shifting our focus away from Latin America towards East Asia, particularly Japan. Now, Japan's lower house scheduling committee has agreed to hold a parliamentary vote to select the next prime minister on the 21st of October. This was informed by a senior committee member. The vote date was proposed by the Liberal Democratic Party, now led by Sanai Takeichi, but it has faced pushback from opposition parties, citing ongoing coalition talks. The LDP is currently engaged in talks with the right-leaning Japan Innovation Party, hoping to secure a majority and expand its coalition. This move could see Takeichi become Japan's first female prime minister. Now, several diplomatic events await the new premier, including regional summits in Malaysia and South Korea, as well as a visit from US President Donald Trump later this month. With us on the broadcast is Dr. Tomohiko Taniguchi, former advisor to late Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, is joining us from Tokyo. Thank you so much for taking out time speaking to us on NewsX World once again. I wanted to understand from you at the outset, what challenges might Sanai Takeichi face in securing a majority, especially amidst the ongoing coalition talks? Could they be successful?
It appears that the two parties that have been engaged in discussion have reached a point of agreement, more or less. This more or less part still is very much crucial because it is the coalition partner, Innovation Party, that's been demanding a lot, actually. too much, I would say, to the LDP, the Liberal Democratic Party of Japan. So there has been an intensive discussion between the two party leaders, including Sanae Takaichi, and no one is for sure what they have agreed on. But judging from the press conferences that the head of the Innovation Party gave just a moment ago, tells us that they are just about to reach the conclusion of coalition forming.
Indeed, sir, and I also wanted to understand from you, how could then the opposition's pushback against the October 21 vote date affect the process at large, and what is exactly the public perception on the ground?
I think it is mixed because about 40–50% polled come out and say that they are behind Sanae Takaichi. The rest is undecided, so it's always the same. When it comes to the opposition parties, they are fragmented. This word, fragmented, has been the one that you've been hearing a lot of times, but again, I have to use this, fragmented, so much that there will be no consensus to be forged among those opposition parties. So they are just missing the opportunity. When formed, the grand coalition might have outnumbered LDP and its new coalition partner. But chances are the LDP and its new coalition partner, Innovation Party, will prevail in coming days, and eventually on the 21st, as you say, on October, to finally, eventually select Sanae Takaichi as the nation's premier.
Indeed, you've said that it's very likely that the LDP and the Innovation Party coalition could prevail. If that does come to fruition, I wanted to understand from you, Takaichi would be scripting history, and what sort of significance would it then hold for Japan politically and socially if Takaichi becomes the country's first female prime minister?
Symbolically, I think it is very much important, but it is not an isolated symbol. A number of board members, if you look across the board, a number of female board members of Japanese companies, major companies, has been constantly on the rise. The number of female officers and soldiers and sailors and airmen, airwomen in the military sector has also been on the rise. The female participation rate in the labor market has outnumbered that in the United States for some time. So those being the case, Takaichi becoming Japanese prime minister has been less of a surprise. Certainly it's been long overdue.
And I wanted to understand as well, in your assessment, what sort of implications could an expanded coalition with the Innovation Party have, especially on policy direction and legislative priorities? We both know that these are right-leaning parties, but could there be some sort of sticking points that emerge down the line?
Ironically, the combined sum of those two parties is a little shy of making a simple majority in the lower house. So the next big challenge for Ms. Takaichi is to see the opportune time and dissolve Japanese parliament, lower house, and call for general elections. Judging from the surge in popularity that one can see about Takaichi, if she wishes to do that, probably she will have to do it quickly rather than taking time.
Indeed, I want to ask you then, could the push for a quick vote then suggest a strategic advantage for the LDP? Or critics say that it risks destabilizing coalition negotiations. Which side do you concur with?
I was not sure. Say it again. The incoming president of the United States?
No. It's regarding Japan itself. This vote is being pushed for the 21st itself. It's the 17th today. And could a push for this vote suggest that the LDP is looking at a strategic advantage, or critics say that it risks destabilizing coalition negotiations? Who do you concur with?
It's really hard to say, but Takaichi's resolve has appeared to be stronger still if compared to what she looked like 5-6 days ago. So the next couple of days will be spent between the two-party leaders to really cement the agreement and to really see what would be the priority and what would not be the priority. So I don't think this is going to make Takaichi's position vulnerable, simply because, may I repeat, that the opposition is fragmented, and there will be absolutely no room at the moment for 4 or 5 different opposition parties to reach an agreement on the shared platform for their government. So I would say the next couple of days will have very little strategic damage to Sanae Takaichi.
Speaking of the next couple of days, what we're also about to witness at the end of this month are summits in Malaysia, South Korea as well. We're also expecting a visit by US President Donald Trump to Japan. And you've said that the opposition is fragmented despite their differences. They are pushing to delay this particular vote. What sort of implications would have, considering these very crucial international events are on the anvil?
I think it's nearly impossible for the Japanese government not to attend those meetings, or to try to push back some of those calendar schedule. So that has given a sense of impetus, a sense of urgency for the part of Sanae Takaichi. And if Sanae Takaichi has become prime minister by the time, seen from the opposite angle, those would be among the best opportunities for the international community to witness what kind of person Takaichi will be like, is like. Did I answer your question?
Yes, absolutely. And one last question from you, sir. Of course, keeping in context Japan's larger geopolitical interests as well, what sort of priorities would the new premier have to face in managing Japan's relations? What sort of challenges are you also expecting Takaichi to, in fact, face, especially when we're seeing an increasingly aggressive China?
The previous coalition partner, called Komeito, the quasi-Buddhist party, has been extremely proud of their track record of being a bridge builder between China and Japan. So, seen from the Chinese perspective, the Komeito, the previous coalition partner, has been a conduit, if you like, for them to send their messages, Chinese messages, to the Japanese political field. Cut that connection now being cut, I think the LDP, Sanae Takaichi-led LDP, is going to be able to show might more directly to the Chinese side. But that might and power must be sustained, obviously, by Japanese economic rebuilding. So it's a circular argument, if you like. The Japanese government must do a lot to lift its economy, and only by lifting its economy, they could then talk about beefing up their defense buildup.
All right, so with that, I would like to thank you for taking out time and speaking to us on NewsX World. With that, viewers, we're shifting our focus away from Japan towards South Korea. South Korea has now deployed a high-level task force of senior officials to Cambodia to address the growing issue of online scam operations targeting its citizens. The team, led by Vice Foreign Minister Kim Jina, has met with Cambodian Prime Minister Hun Manet in Phnom Penh in order to discuss measures to protect South Koreans and repatriate those detained. Additionally, authorities are making arrangements to bring home about 60 South Koreans held by Cambodia. This comes amid reports that nearly 1,000 South Koreans have been involved in online scam sites in the country. The visit of the South Korean officials to Cambodia follows the death of a 22-year-old student, Park Min-ho, who was found dead in southern Cambodia in August, triggering public outrage in Seoul. Now, in response to the incident, Seoul has imposed travel restrictions in parts of Cambodia, including Bokor Mountain and border towns such as Bawit and Pipet, while maintaining that the measures may be eased if conditions improve further in the future. With us on the broadcast is Dr. Sanjay Kumar, journalist at the Korea Herald, joining us from Seoul. Thank you so much for taking our time and speaking to us on NewsX World. Fresh developments, we were discussing this earlier as well. Now it seems that the Vice Foreign Minister of South Korea has met with the Prime Minister of Cambodia, taking this issue to the highest level. What are the concerns of the South Korean administration, the immediate ones and the long-term ones?
Yes, Vice Minister Kim Jina has already met the Prime Minister there. But Pia, we have to understand here that there is a huge outcry right now, not only in Korea, but this issue is becoming a big issue in the regional diplomacy of ASEAN as well as the United Nations too. Because just this morning, just today, United Nations, the ambassador, South Korean ambassador, deputy ambassador to United Nations have already raised this issue to tackle and come up with some concerted international effort. So that is why this issue is not just limited to Cambodia and Korea. It is turning out to be a very serious issue in the diplomatic circuits.
Indeed, and I also wanted to understand from you how the netizens on ground reacted, because we do know news spreads like wildfire on Korean social media. So what's the opinion of the netizens regarding what we've seen in Cambodia?
Netizens are very angry with the manner that Cambodian authorities have been responding, because just yesterday, the guide association there, the travel guide association in Cambodia, has tried to not justify but say that this tourism and this scam related job scandals are very different issues, and it should not be engaged or relates to tourism industry, and it should not affect the tourism. And Cambodia is very safe. That kind of narrative he was trying to emphasize. And this has raised more anger among Koreans. And that is why, yesterday, President Lee talked with Thai Prime Minister as well. And the Thai government has also said that they are ready to also step up some efforts if needed. To which Cambodian Prime Minister has said that, the neighboring countries must not interfere in their sovereignty. So these kind of these narratives and statements are coming, which is making netizens more angry. And many travelers, they are also showing. Many Korean travelers are also now uploading some of their stories, their experiences, that how they had been also gone through some similar sort of stories. So these things collectively is making Koreans very angry, and it is visible also that we just mentioned that it is being raised in the United Nations General Assembly, which means the issue is becoming very serious. Yeah.
Indeed, so with that, I would like to thank you for taking our time and speaking to us on NewsX World. Meanwhile, viewers, more news coming in. At least one person was killed and dozens of police officers were injured during nationwide protests in Peru against President Jose Jeri. This is according to the state's ombudsman's office. In Lima, hundreds have clashed with police outside the Congress. A 32-year-old protester, Eduardo Mauricio Ruiz, died after being shot. The national police chief later stated that an officer who had been assaulted carried out the shooting and has been removed from duty as well. President Jeri called for an investigation and blamed violence on infiltrators. The Interior Minister promised national police reform, while the Prime Minister said a state of emergency would be declared in Lima. The unrest, led by young protesters and civil groups, have come days after the ouster of former President Dina Boluarte and marks a major test for Jeri's new government. Due to paucity of time, this is all we have for this bulletin. More news and updates on the other side. Stay tuned.